The Forsaken Heir. Previous episodes are available on the playlist. You can also visit our website for your favorite stories. A link is provided in the video description. Episode 16. The people in the entire building are boiling, but it's just a company opening, so there can be such a big scene. Even the helicopter has been dispatched. The crowd poked their heads and looked at the few people standing in front of the company. Claire looked at all of it with a sense of loss. Although she invited some people, they didn't have much friendship with her. Besides, she didn't know anyone who was able to fly in a helicopter. Someone in the crowd exclaimed, "Isn't that flower basket limited to the legendary Tiffany? It seems that this flower basket is worth more than 1 million. Wow, look at the flowers in these flower baskets. They seem to have never been seen before. This is too pretty. That's a Dutch tulip. The top Dutch tulip is similar to our domestic bluegrass. It is very expensive. Any one costs thousands or even tens of thousands. There are also blue enchantresses and Juliet roses that are all top in the world. These precious flowers. These flowers cannot be cultivated in our country. They can only be transported by air from abroad. No wonder the helicopter was dispatched. It is estimated that after being transported to the airport from abroad, it was directly transported here by helicopter. Looking at it this way, a flower basket is worth 1 million for Tiffany's basket alone, and the precious flowers in it may also cost 1 million. There are a total of 20 baskets worth more than 40 million here. Oh my god, this is the real hoe. An opening ceremony, more than 40 million gift baskets alone. Yet. And these flowers won't survive for long. I'm afraid they will wither after a few days. This is too extravagant. The old Mrs. Wilson on the side couldn't help swallowing. She also likes planting flowers, and planted a lot of all kinds of flowers in the courtyard of Wilson's villa. However, she has always been reluctant to buy the world's rare flowers. Especially the most classic red and white tulips in the Netherlands, one plant costs nearly 10,000. Wendy's eyes straightened, and she whispered, "Grandma, I remember that you really liked the Dutch tulips, but in the end I was not willing to buy them. I could only buy a few hundred Henan tulips. How do these people give?" Claire gave such a valuable gift. When the Lady Wilson thought of her Henan tulips, it was 1,000 miles away from others' Dutch tulips. As a result, she was even more jealous, and she couldn't help but wonder if she could take a few away when she leaves, and plant them in her garden to see if they could survive. At this moment, someone outside shouted, "Ms. Doris, Vice Chairman of Emgrand Group, Ms. Warnia, Patriarch Solomon White, Patriarch Sheen Gang, and Genius Dr. Tian Kai, congratulations on the opening of Madam Wade's company, and wish the company a prosperous business." Not only the Wilson family was shocked, but even the entire staff of the Wingstar building were shocked. Although they are an industry under the Emgrand Group, the Emgrand Group seldom intervenes. They didn't expect that the vice chairman of the group and so many Oris Hill big figures came to this humble building for the opening of Claire's company. So many big people gathered in the Wingstar building, which is also a brilliant thing for the Wingstar building. This also made many people wonder in their hearts, what is the background of this newly opened company, and how can so many bigwigs congratulate them at the same time? The members of the Wilson family were also dumbfounded. Everyone wondered in their hearts, How much face is this, Claire?" Claire herself was stunned, and just hearing these names made her very panicked. After all, the entire Wilson family is now in despair, and Claire also knows very well that he can only be regarded as a newcomer who has just started a business and is poor, and has no foundation in Oris Hill. So, how could these big shots personally join in for the opening ceremony? Could it be because of her husband Charlie? At this time, the crowd of onlookers quickly gave up a passage. Two beautiful women, Doris and Warnia, walking side by side from outside, wearing very decent formal attire and smiling. Behind them, Solomon White took Gerald and Fred White, Cheen Gang took Aoxu and Stephen, Tian Kai took Zhovia, and walked in. And Mr. Orville followed all of them. Wendy looked at this scene with a face full of disbelief. Among these people, no matter which one is, it is rare to see big people. Unexpectedly, she would gather here to celebrate Claire, which really made her feel extremely uncomfortable. Before that, she also had her own pride. She was also a young lady, the rich lady, and one of the most outstanding young people in Oris Hill City. She has an outstanding appearance and good figure, and she is also a proper goddess in the upper class of Oris Hill. She has been competing with her cousin everywhere for so many years. She thought that she had found a good husband and could crush her cousin in all aspects, but now, everything she has is compared to Claire. Her current self is actually different from her. "Claire, what kind of luck did you have?" Wendy looked at Claire with undisguised jealousy. Claire ignored her, because she herself was in a daze at this time. She couldn't help looking at Charlie, and asked in a low voice, "You invited these people?" Charlie nodded, and said, "These people, I have shown them feng shui and pointed out their fortunes. It can be regarded as a little friendship." Claire feels her head is huge. She has told Charlie many times, "Don't make that kind of thing to deceive people." He didn't listen, on the contrary, he deceived more and more, and he was a little man who couldn't afford to offend. Wouldn't it be bad luck if it was discovered one day? She wanted to persuade Charlie, but before she could speak, Doris and Warnia had already walked to the front. Warnia spoke first. She glanced at Claire unobtrusively, then smiled, stretched out her hand and said, "Congratulations to Madame Wade's company for opening. If the Song family has design needs in the future, we'll ask for your help." Obviously she was here to deliver the business, and he said that she would ask her for help. The Wilson family was simply dumbfounded. How can Claire make Miss Song so humble? Claire stretched out her hand nervously, shook Warnia's, and said flattered, "Thank you, Miss Song." While talking, Warnia was looking at her, and she was also looking at Warnia. Warnia was almost the same as Claire in appearance and figure, but the noble temperament that Warnia was born with was incomparable to Claire. Thinking of this, Claire couldn't help feeling a little inferior. Warnia said at this time, "Mrs. Wade, you are Mr. Wade's wife, and you are the benefactor of Warnia, so you and I must not be polite." Sure enough, I came here looking at Charlie's face. Hearing this, Claire couldn't help but glance at Charlie, who was greeted by others, feeling a little jealous in his heart. My husband, who could make Miss Song family attach so much importance, he really became more and more invisible. Afterward, Doris also came forward, shook hands with Claire, and smiled, "Mrs. Wade, congratulations on your successful business. Our Emgrand Group has several projects and we are waiting to cooperate with you. Really? Claire was shocked. At the beginning, the Wilson family was able to get the Emgrand Group's 60 million contracts, which was enough to make the whole family excited. If she could get the Emgrand Group's 6 million contracts, she would be very popular. Doris smiled slightly at this time and said, "Of course it is true, Mrs. Wade. We now have a total of almost 300 million in renovation projects. If Mrs. Wade can afford it, then we will assign it to you." The Wilson family next to them are almost jealous. A $3 billion renovation project? All to Claire? The Emgrand Group was squeezed by the door, right? A company like theirs, come to kneel and lick a little Claire? In these 300 million projects, even if it can give the Wilson family 30 million, it is enough for the Wilson family to stand up. The old Mrs. Wilson felt extremely uncomfortable. She knew that Claire had such great ability. Even if she kneeled down for her, she would stay in Wilson's house. At this point in her mind, she secretly swears in her heart, "I have to get Claire back for anything this time. Get the Emgrand Group's project back." At this moment, Solomon White also brought his son Fred and nephew Gerald up. As soon as Solomon White arrived, he respectfully clasped his fists and said, "Mrs. Wade, we also wish you a good business and good fortune. In addition, if the White Group has any decoration business in the future, it will be given to you." Claire was flattered and hurriedly said, "Thank you, Mr. White." Gerald and Fred White also stepped forward, bowing deeply and respectfully saying, "Mrs. Wade, congratulations on your opening." The two of them were already honest and submissive, and the liver trembled when they heard Charlie's name. In addition, the family was now blessed by Charlie, so they really felt sincere about Claire. Respect. At this time, Wendy, who was not far away, had an extremely tangled expression as she watched the White family approach. She saw Gerald, whom she had always loved so much, and felt bitter and unbearable. Originally, she should have been married to him, become his wife, and White's daughter-in-law. However, now, he is even stranger to her. Not only has he blocked all her contact information, but he doesn't even bother to look at her. What made her even more unacceptable was that even Gerald, whom she loved so much, had to bow his head and respectfully talk to Claire. In such a comparison, she was simply thrown into outer space by Claire. Seeing this, Wendy finally couldn't help it, stepped forward, grabbed Gerald's arm, and said with tears, "Gerald! Gerald! Why haven't you been in contact with me lately?" Gerald's face became cold, and he took his arm out of Wendy's hand and said coldly, "Sorry, we have nothing to do with you anymore. I am here to congratulate Mr. Wade and Madam Wade, please respect me a little." Me? Respect? When Wendy heard this, her whole body almost collapsed, her tears kept falling, and she shouted, "Gerald! I have been with you for so many years, and I am your fiancé. I have also been pregnant with your child. Now you let me show respect. You played with me, you then dumped me. Do you respect me?" Wendy's heart was extremely sad and painful at this time. The beautiful sustenance of the rest of her life was once placed on Gerald alone. But unexpectedly, Gerald pushed her into the abyss with his own hands. What made her even more unacceptable was that Gerald not only played with and abandoned her, but even showed such a strong dislike in front of so many people. This almost made her run away. Facing her crying question, Gerald said coldly with a gloomy expression, "Don't mess around here. It's normal to fall in love and break up. Is there any respect or disrespect?" Seeing that Wendy seemed to be making trouble at this time, Charlie stepped over. When Gerald saw Charlie, his face paled in fright, for fear that Charlie would be dissatisfied with this scene, and quickly explained, "Mr. Wade, don't be surprised, this shameless, you must leave her yelling here." Wendy really did not expect that in the past, Gerald was quite fond of her, but now, his attitude towards her is like a slap in the face. Moreover, Gerald actually said that she was a shameless in order to curry favor with Charlie. This made her feel extremely upset. All her patience has completely broken the limit at this moment, and she shouted hysterically, "Are you guys blindly admitting to wrong? What kind of thing is Charlie? But just a wasteful son-in-law. What are you guys? Everyone has to kneel and lick him. Why?" Gerald was shocked, slapped her face, and cursed, "Shut up, what kind of a bird are you, and how dare you comment on Mr. Wade? Believe it or not, I will kill you." Seeing the humiliation of her precious granddaughter, Mrs. Wilson was also very dissatisfied in her heart. She stepped forward and said coldly, "Mr. White, restrain your nephew. Don't deceive too much. Too much deception." Solomon White squinted at her and said with a sneer, "To tell you the truth, if it wasn't for Mrs. Wade's company to open today and the day when he was overjoyed, I wouldn't have seen blood. With what she said just now, I would beat her on the leg." Broke in. After finishing talking, Solomon White stared at Mrs. Wilson again, and said coldly, "Also, what are you? Let me restrain my nephew? Don't think I don't know, I indulged Harold and snatched the villa that I gave to Mr. Wade. It's you, old witch. I didn't bother you. I wanted to give Mr. Wade and Madam Wade's face. You can say one more nonsense. Believe it or not, I'll fight with you." Old Mrs. Wilson had a cold back and her legs suddenly began to tremble. She is accustomed to being domineering in the Wilson family, and when she come out she wants to assume the posture of a patron, but now she has lost power. What's more, even if she didn't lose his power, in front of Solomon White, she was not qualified to point at him. If Solomon White is really going to rush to beat her now, she really has no way. The old Mrs. Wilson was flustered, and hurriedly blurted out, "White, the Lady Wilson who is worried about it for a while. Please don't be familiar with me." Solomon White looked at her in disgust, and said, "Hurry up and go." Old Mrs. Wilson walked away immediately. However, Wendy suffered repeated blows, and at this time had lost her mind. She suddenly rushed in front of Gerald, hugged Gerald, crying and begging, "Gerald, why are you so indifferent to me? I have always loved you, I love you very much. The body, my heart, everything about me is yours. Why do you want to divorce me? I beg you, give me another chance, okay? Let's start from the beginning, okay?" Seeing that she suddenly jumped up and hugged him, Gerald hurriedly struggled, tried to break free, couldn't help but feel annoyed. He knew very well in his heart that he was deceived by the Wilson family's mentally handicapped people and almost offended Mr. Wade. Fortunately, Mr. Wade had a large number of adults, so he didn't continue to target him, otherwise he might have harmed the entire White family. Now, this Wendy still has the face to find him to get back together? Isn't this pulling him into the fire pit? Thinking of this, Gerald pushed Wendy to the ground and kicked her in the stomach, yelling, "Wendy! From today, you will roll as far as you can go. If you entangle, I swear to God that I will kill you." Wendy was struck by lightning immediately, and her whole body was dumbfounded. Looking at Gerald, there was no way to connect with Gerald, who was in love with her before. Although Claire was always dissatisfied with Wendy, she was still her own cousin. Seeing that she was insulted like this, she couldn't see it. So she said to Gerald, "Mr. White, you and Wendy are either if you love it, even if you can't be a lover, you can't be an enemy, right?" As soon as these words came out, Gerald immediately bowed in trepidation and fear. "Mrs. Wade, what you taught us. It was improperly handled underneath. Please forgive me." Wendy did not expect that Gerald would be so cruel and merciless to her, yet so respectful of Claire. She turned her head to look at Claire. Not only did she not feel grateful, but hated her for being a shareholder. A voice yelled in her heart, it was Claire, this BTCH. Blame this BTCH for making me into the field where she is today. Had it not been for this BTCH, and this BTCH's waste husband, she would have married Gerald long ago. She could have lived the happy life of Mrs. White a long time ago, and at the same time, he can help the Wilson family to a higher level, and the entire Wilson family will not be reduced to the present situation. Blame you! Blame you! Blame you! Thinking of this, Wendy with a disheveled hair jumped up suddenly, and suddenly pinched towards Claire full of hatred. "I strangled you! It was you who killed me! I want to strangle you!" Seeing her suddenly walk towards her, Claire's eyes were full of blood red, and she was shocked and hurriedly hid back. Charlie's face was cold, and he was about to shoot Wendy, but saw that Mr. Orville had already rushed out at this time, slapped Wendy hard on the face, and slapped her to the ground. Mr. Orville was very angry, and said, "Who are you? You even dared to beat Madam Wade. I will kill you now." While speaking, Mr. Orville said hello to the back, "Come here, take out this peach who has offended Mrs. Wade, and kill her first." As soon as Mr. Orville's words fell, two burly men in black immediately ran out from behind, pulled Wendy up, and dragged her out. Noah Wilson hurriedly rushed over, begging, "The little girl is ignorant, please forgive her." The killing intent in Mr. Orville's eyes was vertical and horizontal. "What kind of thing are you? No more chirp, I will kill you too." Noah Wilson was frightened by Mr. Orville. He had no doubt about Mr. Orville's words. For such a person who has been in the underground for years and unified the entire Oris Hill underground world, killing two people could not be hard. Seeing that these two brawny men were about to take Wendy away, Noah Wilson was very anxious, and he asked Claire for help. "Claire, please beg for mercy. After all, it is your sister. How can you look at her taken away?" Claire felt a little unbearable, and said to the two strong men, "Don't make things difficult for her. Wendy was also confused for a while and didn't mean to hurt me." Although Claire was a little disgusted with Wendy, she was a cousin after all, so how could she be beaten to death? Hearing what she said, Mr. Orville turned to look at Charlie, waiting for Charlie to give orders. Charlie smiled slightly and said, "Do what my wife says." Mr. Orville said, "Since Madam Wade has spoken, let them live." Charlie nodded and said to Mrs. Wilson, "I said it a long time ago. You are not welcome here. If you are acquainted, just go by yourself. Otherwise, I will let Mr. Orville's people beat you out." Old Mrs. Wilson trembled with anger, and the road was unsteady, but she didn't dare to stay here. She could only leave quickly with the help of Noah Wilson, for fear of being beaten. Wendy was still in a state of despair and screamed, "I won't go! I won't go! I'm going to strangle that peach Claire! Let go of me and let me strangle her!" Mr. Orville kicked her with a black face, and kicked her to the ground directly, yelling, "Cut off your tongue, if you don't stop talking nonsense." Seeing that his sister was about to cause a catastrophe, Harold hurriedly stepped forward to help her up and said, "Sister, let's go home." The Lady Wilson sighed repeatedly. Today, she wanted to mock Claire. By the way, she would give her a little pressure and induce her to return to the Wilson family. Unexpectedly, Claire today is no longer in the same language. There are so many big people backing her. The Wilson family is completely unable to trick her back when she left. Mrs. Wilson felt extremely uncomfortable. If she knew today, why bother? Now Claire is unwilling to return to the Wilson family. The Wilson family has lost the last straw, and it seems that only bankruptcy is left for them to have it in their fate. After the Wilson family left in disgrace, Claire was relieved. However, the lively atmosphere on the scene quickly made her nervous again. The people here are all big people, but the place here is very small and the reception is not very convenient. Just thinking about it, many staff from Wingstar Building ran over to entertain them with meals, drinks. After all, it is the property of the Emgrand Group. With a call from Doris, the group immediately put aside all their work and gathered around Claire's studio to help. Doris came to Claire and said, "Mrs. Wade, Wingstar Building is the property of our Emgrand Group. Since you choose to start a business here, we naturally have to show something." Then, she greeted a middle-aged person and said, "This is Sue Bo, the manager of Wingstar Building. I have already told him that in the future, the office on this floor will gradually be invited to quit and leave it to your company." Claire hurriedly waved her hand, flattered and said, "Doris, you don't need to be so polite. I have a studio now. I can't use such a large place, and the cost of such a large place is too high, I can't afford it." Sue Bo hurriedly handed over a check for 180,000 and said to Claire, "Mrs. Wade, this is your prepaid one-year office rent. From now on, all the rent, utilities, property fees, air conditioning, and heating costs are all borne by us." Claire nervously said, "Oh, this works so well." Charlie took her hand at this time and said with a smile, "Wife, since Doris has the heart to help you, why do you refuse on her?" Doris's face. Claire hurriedly said, "I'm not refuting Doris's face, I just think it's too embarrassing." Charlie took the check from Sue Bo and put it in Claire's hand, saying, "Since Doris and Sue said that it is free, then you should take the money. Emgrand Group is a large group with a market value of hundreds of billions. Why would you care about your rent? Besides, I will work with you in the future. You can't be so dismissive, right?" Charlie's words made Claire's heart loose. Indeed, the Emgrand Group is the largest company in Oris Hill. Just one company is comparable in scale to the entire Song family. If she had to meet Doris because of the 180,000 rent, it would probably make Doris feel uncomfortable. So she nodded hurriedly and said gratefully, "Doris, thank you so much." Doris smiled slightly. Everyone is a partner, and it is okay to help each other. Claire nodded hurriedly, and then handed the check to Charlie, saying, "The dress I wear has no pockets. You can put this check for me." "Okay." Charlie slipped the check into his pocket and said to Claire, "Go, I'll take you to say hello to Miss Song. They have several renovation projects in the Song family recently. You can talk to her more." Claire responded, but she didn't want to chat with Warnya. Because she is indeed a little inferior in front of Warnya. More importantly, she always felt that behind Warnya's generous and intellectual smile, there seemed to be some hostility hidden. It is said that a woman's intuition is the most accurate. Deep down in Warnya's heart, she was thinking that one day she would be able to bring Charlie, the son-in-law, from Wilson's to Song's house, so she would faintly be hostile. And Claire was already aware of Warnya's deeply hidden hostility. It's just that she hasn't figured out the source of this hostility yet. At this time, Claire checked the time. It was already past 10 o'clock, and her parents hadn't arrived yet. So she quietly told Charlie, "Charlie, Mom and Dad have not arrived yet, you call them and ask where they are." Charlie nodded and said, "Maybe there is a traffic jam on the road." He and Claire got up early because they had to clean up the office and prepare for reception. Before going out, they also agreed with the old wife and mother-in-law to come to the company before 10 o'clock and attend the opening ceremony together. But now more than 10 minutes have passed, and they haven't seen the shadow of the two old men. Charlie took out his cell phone, and just about to make a call, he heard Claire's cell phone ring. Claire saw that her mother Elaine was calling, and she immediately answered the phone. As soon as the phone was connected, Elaine's anxious voice came, "Claire, there was a car accident on our way here, and your dad is injured and he is in the People's Hospital. Come here." "What?" Claire was shocked, and immediately asked, "How is Dad's injury? Which hospital is it in?" Elaine's voice trembled, hurriedly, still crying, and said, "At Oris Hill People's Hospital, your dad was knocked into a coma. Come here." Claire didn't expect that at the first moment. She was still celebrating the grand opening with joy, but the next second, she suddenly received such a bad news. She said anxiously, "Okay, I'll come over immediately." Charlie heard the call between the two clearly and realized the seriousness of the matter. Afterwards, without saying anything, he immediately said to everyone present, "Everyone sits by yourself for a while, Claire and I are going out." Under normal circumstances, it is a very rude behavior for the host to leave the guests aside, but these people are Charlie's fans, so naturally they have no opinion on Charlie. So Charlie drove his wife Claire straight to Oris Hill People's Hospital. When they arrived at the hospital, Charlie and Claire went all the way to the ICU ward of the hospital. Pushing the door in, Charlie saw at a glance that Jacob was lying on the hospital bed, his eyes closed tightly, and he was unconscious. As for the mother-in-law Elaine, she was sitting in front of the hospital bed with bloodstains on her body, her face pale, and she looked lost. Claire's pretty face turned pale, her eye circles instantly red and swollen. She rushed over and asked anxiously, "Mom, what's wrong with Dad?" Elaine's eyes were red and said, "Your dad took me to attend your opening ceremony and was hit by a muck truck running through a red light. Now his situation is very dangerous." Claire hurriedly asked the doctor making rounds in the ward, "Doctor, how is my father's condition?" The doctor said, "Don't worry, he is not in danger for the time being." Claire and Charlie breathed a sigh of relief when they heard that Jacob was not in danger. Unexpectedly, the doctor hesitated at this moment and said again, but Claire couldn't help asking, "But what?" The doctor sighed and said, "However, the patient has injured his spine and will face high paraplegia when he wakes up." High paraplegia, that is, paralysis from the neck down. In that case, a human would become a living dead with no abilities, only slightly better than a vegetable. When she heard that her dad might face high paraplegia, Claire's eyes were dark, and she only felt that the sky was spinning for a while. If it weren't for Charlie's quick eyes and hands to support her, she would collapse to the ground. If her father, Jacob, really becomes paraplegic, it means that he can only lie on the bed in the future, can't do anything, and completely lose his ability to live. This kind of life, for a person, is simply better than death. She hurriedly asked, "Doctor, can a spinal injury be cured?" The doctor shook his head and said, "Basically, there is no cure. At least there are no cases of high paraplegia cured in the world. The most common is that the patient has recovered to the point where the patient can sit up by himself, and the rest is basically powerless, so you have to be mentally prepared." Hearing this, Claire couldn't help crying like rain, and it was pear blossoms with rain. Then, she choked up and asked Elaine, "Mom, are you okay?" Elaine looked pale and said, "Hey, I'm fine, but my head hurts a bit." The doctor said that there was basically no major problem after the examination. It was mainly your dad. The muck truck hit his side at the time. As she said, she cried all of a sudden. Her husband may be paraplegic at a high position, which is also a fatal blow to her. Charlie asked carefully to find out that the muck truck that ran the red light had already escaped after the incident. The mother-in-law and the old master both fell into a coma when the accident happened, and could not see the approximate visual characteristics of the license plate number. Subsequently, the two were sent to the hospital by kind passers-by. Elaine's situation was better. Sitting in the passenger seat, she was just unconscious when she was hit at the beginning. At most, she was stippled and suffered some minor injuries. She woke up after arriving at the hospital. But the old master sat in the driving position and took most of the impact, so he was not so lucky, and he was hit by a muck truck. Charlie couldn't help sighing, God doesn't have long eyes either. This old master, although he usually likes to brag, he doesn't understand and has to pretend to be an expert, but to the bottom of his heart, he is not a bad person, he is just a little useless. As a result, Jacob is currently paraplegic in a high position. If he does not take action, he will be basically cold for the rest of his life. On the contrary, mother-in-law is not only a standard snobbery, she is also a half-shrew, a stinky lady who wants to sell her daughters and begs for glory, and she has no morals or limits in her life. The results of it? She has nothing to do. Thinking of this, Charlie sighed, thinking evilly in his heart, why isn't the person who was knocked into a paraplegic, his mother-in-law Elaine? If she bumped into a high paraplegia, she will save a lot of worry in the future when she is in Wilson's family. At this moment, the door of the ICU ward opened, and two figures walked in from outside. When Charlie saw the young man walking in the forefront, his face suddenly became cold. The person here was Gao Junwei, who was hit hard by himself at the car show yesterday. And behind him, there was a middle-aged man carrying a medicine chest with a big red cross on it. Claire couldn't help asking, "Mom, why did he come?" Elaine said, "I asked him to come." Junwei knew the dean of this hospital. He was visiting relatives here when we were admitted. He saw that I and your dad were injured, so he arranged for your dad to the ICU ward. After speaking, she immediately changed her face, greeted him with a smile on her face, and exclaimed affectionately, "Junwei, you have been busy running up and down just now. You have worked hard, come and have a rest." Gao Junwei smiled slightly and said, "It's okay, Auntie, I'm not tired." As he said, he suddenly saw Charlie standing behind Elaine, his face changed slightly. Unexpectedly, Charlie, an eye-catching waist, was actually there. Yesterday at the auto show, it was because Charlie was in the middle of it, that made him lose face in front of Claire. Since then, he hated Charlie deeply. And he didn't think Charlie rubbish would be really awesome, so he wanted to find a chance to pierce his disguise. Now that the enemy meets, he is naturally jealous, and at the same time, he is even thinking about regaining his face before Claire and regain her favor. At this time, Elaine sighed, wiped away her tears, and said, "Junwei, the doctor said just now that your Uncle Wilson may be paralyzed in bed for the rest of his life. How can this make me live?" Gao Junwei hurriedly pointed to the middle-aged man behind him and introduced to Elaine, "Auntie, don't worry. This is Zhongjing Lu, the famous Dr. Zhongjing Lu. He is a famous traditional medicine doctor in the country. I specially invited him to come to see Uncle. He is a great healer. Uncle will be able to heal with him." As soon as Elaine heard that the other party was a well-known expert in the country, she was immediately excited and said hurriedly, "Oh, Junwei, thank you so much." "Thank you also, Dr. Zhongjing." Gao Junwei smiled slightly and said calmly, "Auntie, you are welcome, this is what I should do." After speaking, he turned around and respectfully said to Zhongjing Lu behind him, "Mr. Zhongjing, Uncle Wilson's illness, I'm bothering you." Hearing this, Zhongjing Lu took a step forward, smiled slightly, and said confidently, "Don't worry, isn't the patient hurting the spine? Although it is difficult to heal, it is still very easy for me." The doctor in charge of the hospital asked in surprise, "As far as I know, there is no good solution for spinal injuries in the world. Even the richest people in the world can only lie on the bed after they have injured their spine. With cord sclerosis, you can only sit in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, with only 3 fingers you can move. Why are you so confident?" Zhongjing Lu smiled and said arrogantly, "Because I have a magical medicine, as long as I give it to the patient will recover soon." After speaking, he carefully took out half a crystal clear pill from the medicine cabinet. Holding the pill, Zhongjing Lu looked arrogantly and said, "Look, this is the magical medicine I developed. After eating it, let alone a spinal injury, it is nothing to say to restore a vegetative person to normal. Claire, who has been crying silently, couldn't help but ask, does this medicine really work? Of course. Zhong Jinglu said with a proud face, stroking his beard, I am the world's #1 magic drug maker. It was made with the essence of life and painstaking effort by an expert with great magical powers before driving to the West. Priceless, if it weren't for Mr. Gao's face, I would never take this medicine out. Charlie looked at the half-pill in Zhong Jingliu's hand, and he was immediately happy. Isn't this just the semi-finished products that he prepared to heal Jacob? This medicinal property is actually 1/10 of the actual finished product. Although it is not bad, it is no problem for general injuries and serious illnesses, but it is a bit less potent. It was also fortunate that Zhong Jinglu treated it like a treasure, and even took it out carefully, for fear that it would be broken and damaged. But in Charlie's eyes, this medicine is a gadget he refining at will, as much as he wants. Thinking of this, he sneered even more. If it were the magic medicine that he refined for the second time, it could indeed heal the old master's spine and make him recover as before. However, this half-finished product in Zhong Jingliu's hands is definitely not good. So Charlie couldn't help but shook his head and said, forget it, Dr. Zhongjing, you can't cure father-in-law's disease with your medicine. Gao Junwei next to him immediately sarcastically said, Charlie, how you dare to question the authority of Dr. Zhongjing here? Zhong Jinglu seemed to hear a big joke, and said, boy, what do you know? Even the famous traditional medicine expert Tian Kai, his injuries were cured by my magic medicine. This traditional medicine leader is convinced that it's ridiculous that you can't say it's a suspicious magic drug. When this word came out, everyone present was shocked. Who is Tian Kai? He is the undisputed expert of the traditional medicine circle. He has extremely superb medical skills and he has treated countless people throughout his life. Even if you are rich and powerful, it is difficult to invite him out. But now, he was helpless with his own body, but the magical medicine developed by the magical Dr. Zhongjing was directly cured? But Charlie said that the medicine was not effective at this moment. Isn't this a joke? After hearing this, Elaine was furious and immediately cursed, Charlie, you are a useless rubbish, what kind of stuff you are, don't you know it? As she said, the more she looked at Charlie, the more displeased she was, and she said, don't be here to delay the treatment by Dr. Zhongjing, hurry up. Charlie frowned. At the same time, he couldn't help but slander in his heart, could it be that Zhong Jinglu was the first to buy the medicine from Irvin Jones? If this is the case, the one who resold one of the medicines to Tian Kai at a high price of 5 million is probably also him. It seems that Zhong Jinglu is still a profitable businessman in his bones. This Gao Junwei invited him out of the mountain for fear that he did not spend less. At this time, Gao Junwei also thought he had grasped Charlie's handle, and sneered, Charlie, you are a rubbish, and you can't help with anything. You are quite nonsense. As he said, he pretended to suddenly realize, and said, oh, I can understand it, you question the genius Dr. Zhongjing, you don't want to see Uncle Wilson heal. Hee, am I talking nonsense? Charlie can tolerate the unreasonable troubles of his mother-in-law, but it does not mean that he also puts Gao Junwei in his eyes, and immediately sneered, "I know Tian Kai, why haven't I heard him say that his illness was cured by this idiot?" Gao Junwei laughed and said, "Charlie, you are really funny when you talk, and you know Tian Kai. Why don't you say that you know the President of the United States?" When Zhong Jinglu heard Charlie say that he was a quack, his face was also very ugly. Afterwards, he reprimanded with the appearance of an expert, "You young man, you are not very capable, and your tone is not small. It is estimated that you have never read a medical book, and dare you to say that I am a quack." As he said, he pointed at Charlie arrogantly and said, "You, apologize to me now. Otherwise, I won't save this patient." Elaine paled with fright, and blurted out, "Charlie, do you want to kill my husband? What is your intention? Do you want to kill my husband first, and then kill me, you? To monopolize our property?" Charlie's face was green. "I monopolize your property? Does your family have any property? Your family is now, I'm afraid it won't even be able to take out a few million, just an ordinary 3-bedroom apartment, is it worth my exclusive possession?" Charlie doesn't know how to spend tens of billions in the bank, and there are 100 million checks honored by Warnia in his pocket. She says he wants to monopolize the family's property? It's really the biggest joke in the world. Gao Junwei also added fuel and jealousy to the side, "Auntie, I think this Charlie is indeed plotting wrong, you must take precautions, otherwise, in the future, you will really be trapped by such a white-eyed wolf." Claire couldn't help but said, "Charlie, let the genius Dr. Zhongjing try." Unexpectedly, the genius Dr. Zhongjing was forced by this fashion, and coldly snorted, "Boy, if you don't kneel and kowtow to me today, this patient, he really won't be cured." Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished saying this, a cold voice suddenly sounded from outside the door, "Who is it that dared to let Mr. Wade kneel down for him? You are impatient." As the voice came in, they saw a middle-aged man wearing a tailored suit stepping into the ward. At the moment when Gao Junwei and Lu Zhongjing saw this middle-aged man, their expressions changed drastically and they were shocked. The dignified Oris Hill Underground King Orville. What's happening here? Why did he get here? Gao Junwei and the two hadn't reacted yet, and the next scene made them dumbfounded, and the whole person was struck by lightning. At the door of the ward, there were a few more people rushing in. It was Doris, vice chairman of Emgrand Group, Solman White, patriarch of the White family, Qin Gang patriarch of the Qin family, Taila, the richest man in Haikan, Tian Kai, the dean of traditional medicine, and others. These bigwigs, who have an important status in Oris Hill and Haikan, walked directly to Charlie, bowed together, and cried respectfully, "Mr. Wade." Charlie asked, "Why are you here?" Orville said respectfully, "Mr. Wade, we heard that your father-in-law was in a car accident, so we hurried over to come and visit. I hope you don't mind." Charlie smiled slightly, and said, "You are so kind." He said these words casually, but just these simple words made these big men like treasures, their faces flushed, and their bodies were so excited that they couldn't stop shaking slightly. Seeing such a scene, Elaine looked ashamed and said to her heart, "It's over, Charlie, a liar, is getting more and more deceived. Now so many big guys treat Charlie respectfully, in case his deception is exposed one day, isn't this family going to die?" She doesn't believe that Charlie really has any abilities. She knew Charlie's past was very clear. She became an orphan at the age of 8 and went to a welfare home. Wiped the glass, and was later brought back by the Wilson family father to marry Claire. If he is really capable, how can he be so stubborn? Gao Junwei was dumbfounded, especially when he saw Warnya. It was even more incredible. This is the famous Song family youngest progeny. In front of the Song family, his Gao family was not even a bullshit, even his father had no right to see Warnya. But at this moment, Warnya, who is beautiful and moving, is actually respectful of Charlie's rubbish? How can that be? Gao Junwei couldn't understand why Charlie was a wasteful, what is worthy of such a condescending wealthy lady worth hundreds of billions. As a result, he couldn't help being surprised anymore and blurted out, "Miss Song, have you admitted the wrong person? Charlie is the rubbish." Warnya's face became cold, and she shouted, "Who gave you the courage to question Mr. Wade here?" Qin Gang on the side also gave a cold smile and shouted to Gao Junwei, "Mr. Wade is the only true dragon in the world, with unimaginable fairy methods. How can you say this?" Solomon White, patriarch of the White family, scolded coldly, "Yes, Mr. Wade is highly respected and famous in Oris Hill. How could his name be something you can call with such lowly words?" Orville's eyes were cold, and he said, "I'm all looking at Mr. Wade's horse's head. You dare to be disrespectful to him, that is, if you are our enemy, if you dare to speak wildly, your legs and feet will be interrupted." Under the scolding of everyone, Gao Junwei's face turned blue and white, and his whole person was shocked and speechless. At this moment, Tian Kai yelled coldly and said, "Zhong Jinglu, come over here." Upon hearing this, Zhong Jinglu was panicked. Others don't know, but he knows whether his miraculous medicine has cured Tian Kai's illness. Now that he sees the righteous master, he has to wear his lies. But at this moment, he could only bite the bullet and step forward and respectfully said, "Old she." Tian Kai angrily rebuked, "I just heard you say that you cured my disease with the medicine in your hand." Zhong Jinglu panicked and said, "Old she, I am not covering up and bragging, please forgive me." In fact, Zhong Jinglu knew very well that after he sold the medicine to Tian Kai made it clear that the medicine was very powerful and relieved his injuries, but it was still far from a cure. The reason why he said just now that this medicine cured Tian Kai was mainly to pretend to force himself. However, he never dreamed that Tian Kai would appear here. At this moment, facing Tian Kai, he was extremely nervous. Although he is also a well-known traditional medicine doctor, he is still far behind Tian Kai. Tian Kai is the president of the Traditional Medicine Association. If he provokes him, he would say something. He can remove him from the TCM circle. In that way, all the hard work of my life will be lost. Tian Kai was not prepared to forgive Zhong Jinglu so easily. He looked at Zhong Jinglu and said coldly, "You have offended Mr. Wade, don't you hurry up and apologize." Zhong Jinglu was so angry, "What? Want to apologize to a little boy? Why? Even if he brags, it doesn't mean he is worse than Charlie." Thinking of this, he stubbornly said, "Old she, I admit that I brag about you, but this kid with the name Wade speaks wildly and insults my magical medicine. Why should I apologize to him?" Tian Kai had a dark face, and after leading him aside, he whispered, "You idiot! Do you know that the magic medicine in your hand is made by Mr. Wade? How dare you talk like that about him?" "What?" Zhong Jinglu cried out in disbelief. "This magical medicine was made by Charlie." Tian Kai said coldly, "To tell you the truth, Mr. Wade has refined a magical medicine with better effects a few days ago. My old wounds are cured by Mr. Wade's magical medicine. You dare to question his level?" Zhong Jinglu panicked and couldn't choose his way. His sweat continued to flow. He hurriedly explained, "Master, I didn't know that the magic medicine was made by Mr. Wade. If I knew it earlier, how could I dare to do this?" Unexpectedly, before he finished speaking, Tian Kai said coldly, "It's late. After this incident, I will suggest the health department to permanently revoke your medical qualification certificate." As soon as he said this, Zhong Jingliu's face instantly became extremely pale, and his body was suddenly cold and sweaty, and he was scared to death. Then, he reacted with a plop, kneeling directly in front of Charlie, kowtow, crying and begging, "Mr. Wade, I am wrong, I apologize to you. I lied to everyone, this magic medicine I didn't develop it at all, I bought it. I don't know if it can cure hyperplegia. I just took it out and flicked it out. I have no eye to see it and bumped into you. Please, please spare my life." After he finished speaking, he knelt down, slapped himself and apologized again, breaking down and crying. At this scene, Gao Junwei was even more stunned to see Claire and Elaine's mother and daughter in shock. Elaine also expected this magical Dr. Zhongjing to help her husband, but who would have thought that he would kneel down and apologize to Charlie? Gao Junwei's face was pale, and he clenched his hands tightly, only to feel that Charlie's face was completely stepped under his feet. But he didn't believe in Charlie's great ability, and he was unwilling to bow his head to this waste. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Orville suddenly sneered at him and asked Charlie for instructions. "Mr. Wade, what should I do with this man?" He was in front of Charlie, but he didn't dare to make claims, otherwise, he would attack Gao Junwei's previous attitude towards Charlie, and he would deal with the opponent to death. Charlie said calmly, "You can figure it out by yourself." After Orville heard this, he was about to say that people would beat him up, but Qin Gang frowned and asked, "The man has a big status. I heard Limo say that you were the one who embarrassed Mr. Wade at the auto show yesterday." "Right." "Ah, no, that's not me." Gao Junwei panicked completely. Although he suffered a big loss yesterday, in the final analysis it was his trouble finding Charlie. Now it seems that people have to settle two accounts together. When Orville heard this, he suddenly sneered and said, "Okay, it turns out that you, a dog with no eyesight, felt sorry for Mr. Wade yesterday. Okay, I will let you know the cost of having trouble with Mr. Wade." After that, he immediately ordered his opponent, "Come on, throw this unopenable thing down the window." Gao Junwei was so scared that he did not dare to hold on any more. He knelt on the ground and cried out, "Mr. Charlie, I was wrong. I apologize to you. I don't dare any more. Please forgive me." This time Charlie sneered and said, "Aren't you quite capable? What do you want me to do with this waste?" Gao Junwei cried loudly with his nose and tears, "Charlie, I was really wrong, I am a rubbish. I am a rag. I am the biggest smelly rag in the world. Please raise your hand, let me go once. Charlie kicked him away and said coldly, have you heard a word? You didn't respond to me before, but now I can't afford you. After that, he shouted to Mr. Orville, what are you drowsy at? Mr. Orville's expression stunned, and he hurriedly ordered his subordinates, have you been so stunned? Even if you are stunned, you also jump down for me. Without saying anything, several of Orville's men immediately lifted Gao Junwei up, and with a scream, they threw him out the window. Claire suddenly covered her mouth, her heart pounding, and her mind went blank. This is the 3rd floor. What if Gao Junwei falls down? Thinking of this, she and Elaine rushed out the window. However, Gao Junwei's condition was life-threatening, just clutching his legs on the lawn and screaming constantly. Because he happened to be in the hospital, a doctor arrived soon and sent him to emergency. Claire also breathed a sigh of relief. Recently, Gao Junwei has been leaning on her, and he has repeatedly insulted Charlie, which made her a little disgusted. Now that the other party has clearly broken his leg, it seems that he will not come back to pester her for a while. Charlie took advantage of this moment, quietly walked to Tiankai, took out a pill he refined for the 2nd time from his pocket, and whispered, Mr. Shi, you will give it to me later. The old master treated the illness and then gave him this medicine. In fact, on the way to the hospital, Charlie planned to personally treat the old master. With the pills he refined, he could heal a spine injury without any effort. However, after he arrived at the hospital, he discovered that Gao Junwei had invited the genius Dr. Zhong Jing. With these two people disrupting the situation, his mother-in-law Elaine would never let him interfere. Moreover, he was also worried that if he took out the magic medicine, it would make his wife and mother-in-law confused, and it would be difficult to explain it. Now that Tiankai is here, it couldn't be more convenient for him to handle this matter. With the help of Tiankai, a master of traditional medicine, to heal the old master, he can definitely explain the past. After all, Tiankai has a huge reputation, and he can also be convinced that he can perform medical miracles. Tiankai understood his thoughts, but was surprised to ask, Mr. Wade, spinal injury is not a common problem in Chinese and Western medicine. There is no way to overcome it now. Can your magical medicine really cure it? After speaking, he said apologetically, Sorry, Mr. Wade, I didn't mean to doubt your magic drug, but I was a little nervous. This is really beyond my understanding. Charlie said lightly, Don't worry, this medicine can repair the damage to the spine. Tiankai was surprised and said, Oh, if your father-in-law is cured, this will be a medical miracle. If it spreads out, it will shock the whole world. How can I dare to take such a reputation? Charlie said indifferently, You should know that I am not a person who seeks a reputation. Besides, I am not involved in the medical profession. Therefore, it is not appropriate for me to do this kind of thing. It is you. If you can cure the spine with traditional medicine, it spreads out, this is a great miracle of our Chinese TCM, and it will surely make the whole world look at TCM with admiration, so you should stop rejecting it. When Tiankai heard this, he nodded immediately, took the pill, and respectfully said, Mr. Wade, I obey. Charlie suddenly remembered something and hurriedly said, By the way, Only half the capsule is needed to treat spinal injuries, and the remaining half will be given to you. Tian Kai trembled all over. Can half a capsule cure hyperplegia caused by spinal injury? This is amazing, right? What made him even more excited was that Charlie was actually willing to give the remaining half to him. This is simply a great reward. After all, the medicine that Mr. Wade gave him last time had already been taken by himself. Although he healed the old wounds that he had never healed in his life, his fate with that magical medicine only lasted a moment. Now, everyone else still had the magic medicine given by Mr. Wade, but his was gone. Tian Kai himself felt a little regretful, but he knew that Charlie was so kind to him, and before he repaid him, he was really embarrassed to talk to Charlie again. But now, Charlie actually wants to give him half of the remaining medicine for the treatment. This made him extremely excited and moved. If you have this half, you will have one more life-saving support in the future. Tian Kai was so excited that he could not wait to kneel to Charlie immediately. With 2 chokes, Tian Kai burst into tears and nodded again and again, "Mr. Wade's great kindness, I will never forget." Charlie gave him a calm look, and then said, "Okay, go for treatment, don't make my wife anxious." At this moment, Claire was very worried about her father's injury. She had never expected that Zhong Jinglu, whom Gao Junwei had invited, was actually a quack doctor. Now that Zhong Jinglu has been seen through, who can heal her father's spine throughout Oris Hill? Just thinking about it, Charlie walked to her with Tian Kai and introduced, "Claire, this is a famous doctor, Tian Kai is experienced, he can heal our dad's injury." When Claire and Elaine heard this, they were overjoyed. The mother and daughter never dreamed that Tian Kai, a top traditional medicine doctor, would be willing to treat Jacob. Claire hurriedly said, "Mr. Tian Kai, my dad's illness, I beg you to cure him for us." Tian Kai smiled slightly and said, "Mrs. Wade, please rest assured, Mr. Wade has the grace of reinventing me, I will definitely go all out." After finishing speaking, he stepped up to Jacob, who was lying on the hospital bed, took out the pill, cut half of it very carefully, and put half of the medicine into Jacob's mouth with the eyes of everyone expecting. Everyone held their breath. Although the original doctor at the hospital did not believe that traditional medicine could cure the spinal injury, after all, he was the famous Tian Kai. This made him vaguely feel that a miracle might really happen. Warnya, Solman White, Qin Gang, and Mr. Orville all got Charlie's magical medicine, so they recognized the origin of this medicine at a glance. They also want to know at this moment, how amazing is this magical medicine? Can it deal with hyperplegia? Afterwards, Jacob's body trembled slightly, and his face that was originally extremely pale began to flush at this moment, and his closed eyes slowly opened at the same time. When Jacob opened his eyes, he only felt a shock. The whole body was warm, and he was indescribably comfortable. Moreover, the painful feeling deep into the bone marrow is slowly disappearing. He subconsciously tried to sit up, and at this moment, a scene that stunned everyone. Jacob actually relied on his own strength to sit up from the hospital bed. Everyone present was shocked after seeing such a scene. Claire covered her small mouth and cried with joy. Tian Kai is indeed a master of traditional medicine. He has rejuvenated her father's hyperplegia. He really cured him. And Orville and others witnessed Jacob's recovery as before, and they admired Charlie even more. They knew that half of the pill Jacob ate was the magical medicine refined by Charlie, and they had obtained them all. Now they saw that the pill had such a mighty power. High paraplegia can be cured with only half a capsule, and all of them are excited with no addition. At the same time, they couldn't help but sigh in their hearts, Mr. Wade is really a god and man. The pill prepared by his hand can cure even high paraplegia instantly. It is a life-saving medicine. And Tian Kai was shocked and about to faint. This is really a medical miracle. Even if it is an American, it is impossible to cure high paraplegia. However, it was cured with only half a magic drug. Thinking of this, he was so excited that he couldn't help but put the remaining half in his clothes' inner pocket carefully. This is an extra half magical medicine that Mr. Wade rewarded himself. Be sure to keep it safe. At this time, Jacob felt the astonishing changes in his body, and his expression was incredulous. He vaguely remembered that he had been hit by a car accident and he couldn't move all his body. But now, how does it feel as if this incident has never happened before? The feeling of his body turned out to be so good that it couldn't be better, even better than before the injury. What is going on here? Thinking of this, Jacob was suddenly confused. He couldn't help asking Claire, "Claire, what's wrong with me?" Claire recovered and hurriedly cried and said, "Dad, you were almost paralyzed in a car accident, thanks to the genius doctor." After all, she stepped up to Tian Kai and said gratefully, "Thank you so much for this, genius doctor. If it weren't for you, my dad would really be helpless." After that, she had a pretty face and solemnly, and she wanted to bend over to thank Tian Kai. Tian Kai hurriedly helped her up. He actually wanted to say, "I want to thank Mr. Wade. Without Mr. Wade's medicine, her father can't be cured by himself. Even, her father's recovery depends on Mr. Wade's magical medicine." However, when he thought that Charlie didn't want to expose his strength, Tian Kai had no choice but to bite the bullet and say, "Mrs. Wade, it's just a small matter. You don't need to be so polite. If it weren't for the magical medicine of Mr. Wade, even a master of traditional medicine would have no cure for high-level paraplegia." The doctor in charge of the hospital was also stunned. He looked at Tian Kai and said tremblingly, "Mr. Shi, you have created a world-class medical miracle. You can get a Nobel Prize in medicine just by using your medicine. This is a great event for the benefit of all mankind." Tian Kai smiled awkwardly, and said, "If you are serious, the old master only got the magic medicine by accident. Otherwise, even if I have great skills, I will not be able to restore the paralyzed person to normal." The attending doctor sighed, "Your magic medicine is a medical miracle in itself. If mass production is possible, I don't know how many people will benefit." Tian Kai shook his head and said, "My magical medicine was refined by someone with great magical powers. It is extremely rare in the world. I only have the last half left, let alone mass production." The attending doctor sighed and said, "That's really a shame." Claire hurriedly stepped forward at this time and asked the attending doctor, "Doctor, how long will my father be discharged from the hospital in the current situation?" The attending doctor said, "Well, I just took a look at Mr. Wilson's condition. The spinal injury has been repaired, and other injuries to the body have recovered very well. However, I still recommend that you observe him in the hospital for a few days first. Let Mr. Wilson take a good rest. Tian Kai on the side also spoke, yes, Mrs. Wade, usually injured, 3 points depend on treatment, 7 points on support, so I suggest that Mr. Wilson not be in a hurry to leave the hospital, and take a few days in the hospital before taking leave. Claire nodded hurriedly and said, then let's him be hospitalized for a few days first. Upon hearing this, Charlie said to Tian Kai, Warnya and the others, thank you for running to see my father-in-law, thank you. But my father-in-law has recovered from his illness, let him rest quietly. Everyone nodded hurriedly. Now that Mr. Wade has spoken, it is natural to leave as soon as possible so as not to cause chaos. So Warnya, Tian Kai, Qin Gang, Solman White, Orville, and others respectfully bid farewell to Charlie. When Charlie sent them out first, Elaine, his mother-in-law, said to Claire very worriedly, Claire, Charlie is useless rubbish, and now he is more capable of deceiving people. So many big people are being played around by him, this is the rhythm of death. Hearing this warning from her mother, Claire also felt embarrassed. She also thinks that Charlie's feng shui style is close to these big figures, in fact, it is equivalent to walking a tightrope in the Grand Canyon, which is very dangerous. There were some soothsayers masters who deceived many celebrities before, but after the storm, they were united and killed. If Charlie continues like this, it really doesn't matter what will happen in the future. Elaine saw that Claire was also worried, and knew that she had succeeded in moving her, and hurried on the railroad while it was hot. After your dad is discharged from the hospital, you must divorce him quickly. Otherwise, wait someday this group will know they have been fooled by him, but our family still has to suffer as a whole. As he said, Elaine added, you didn't look at that Gao Junwei? He was thrown downstairs without saying a few words. Charlie lied to them so badly, and I didn't know how to die by then. Claire said displeasedly, Mom, Charlie just asked a genius doctor to save Dad, how can you say such a thing? Isn't this crossing the river to demolish the bridge? Why can't you say? Elaine said angrily, do you know that his current situation is just like I had invested in financial insurance at the time, and there may be a thunderstorm someday. Once a thunderstorm occurs, it will be nothing here. Nothing, all gone. Claire said very seriously, Mom, no matter what, I will not choose to divorce Charlie. That's what she said, but Claire couldn't help but feel worried. She wasn't afraid that Charlie would hurt her and the Wilson family in the future, but she was worried that Charlie would be in danger of being retaliated by these big figures of the city. Thinking of this, she felt that she must persuade Charlie to stop letting him fool others by relying on superstition, lest he would ask for trouble in the future. When Elaine heard this, she said angrily, you kid! You really want to piss me off. As soon as the voice fell, Charlie returned after sending everyone. Elaine wanted to say something more, the attending doctor said at this time, yes, please go through a hospitalization procedure soon, and we will start follow-up rehabilitation and nursing. Okay. Claire turned her head and said to Charlie, is the 180,000 check that Doris refunded just now with you? Yes. Charlie nodded and said, then I will pay the money. After speaking, Charlie turned around and left the ward again. Claire's mother, Elaine, when she heard that there were 180,000 checks, hurriedly asked, check? What check? Where did the check come from? Claire said, it was Doris of the Emgrand Group who refunded my office rent, and they gave me the office in Wingstar building for free. Elaine said excitedly, is there such a good thing? Oh! This time you saved 180,000. After finishing speaking, she hurriedly asked the doctor, by the way, how much do we have to pay for hospitalization? The attending doctor said, because the patient has recovered, all that is left is rehabilitation and nursing care. In fact, it is not much money. Only 2,000 a day is enough. You can pay a deposit of 20,000 first. When Elaine heard that he only needed to pay 20,000, she immediately moved her mind. The check was 180,000. 160,000 can be left. Thinking of this, she hurriedly said to Claire, I'll go to Charlie, I'll go for the payment. After speaking, she hurried out to catch up. Charlie was walking to the payment office at this time, and suddenly heard a rush of footsteps behind him. Turning his head, mother-in-law Elaine was already there. Elaine stood still in front of him and ordered out of breath, Charlie, bring the check, and I'll pay the fee. Charlie didn't know that she was greedy for the remaining 160,000, so he said, Mom, you can go back and accompany Dad. I will pay the fee. Elaine glared at him and said angrily, why are you such a nonsense? I said, I'll go. You take out the check and go back to the ward to help Claire. Charlie shrugged helplessly, took out the check from his pocket and handed it to her, saying, Mom, here is the check. Elaine took the check excitedly, and ran to the payment office with joy. Seeing that she was so anxious, Charlie knew that she was planning to spend money, sighed, and turned back to the ward. After returning, Claire asked curiously, did my mother catch up with you? Charlie nodded, Mom is going to leave the check and said she will pay the money. Okay. Claire also looked helpless. She knows that her mother has always been greedy for money and is absolutely open to money. Knowing that there is a refund of the 180,000 rent, she will definitely make some ideas. But she is not good to say anything. After all, her mother is such a person. If she disagrees, she will definitely cry and hang herself. At this time, Elaine rushed to the payment office, slapped the check in front of the toll collector, and said, I'll pay Jacob's hospitalization fee. The toll collector nodded, opened the file, saw the hospitalization information, and said, it is enough to pay 20,000, refund more and less makeup. Okay. Elaine couldn't hide her excitement and said, pay with this check, and send the rest to my personal card. After finishing speaking, she took out her bank card, handed it over, and said, just punch into this card, don't rush. The toll collector gave a hum, picked up the check and glanced at it, suddenly stunned. Elaine was stunned when she saw her, thinking that she was deliberately sabotaged, and said angrily, what's the matter with you? You should deal with it quickly. I still have something to do. The toll collector came back to her senses. Seeing Elaine's face was impatient, she was also a little angry, and threw the check directly on Elaine's face, and said angrily, I think you are a patient from the psychiatric department. Right? Take a check for 100 million to pay the hospital bill. Didn't take medicine today. What? 100 million? Elaine frowned, lowered her head and picked up the check on the ground, and when she glanced at it, she was shocked by the large number of 0 on the check. While counting, she muttered to herself, 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, 10 million, 100 million. Counting here, she was blinded and blurted out, "It's 100 million. This is a fortune." The toll collector could not hide his anger and said, "I said you are sick? Where did you get a mischievous check and dare to come to me to lie? Believe it or not, I will call 110 to catch you and go to jail for fraud." Only then did Elaine come back to her senses, and suddenly she was frightened in a cold sweat. Oh my God! Almost something big happened. How could this 100 million check be true? The daughter clearly said that it was 180,000, and this 100 million check must have belonged to Charlie. This stinky silk, it's okay to lie to the big guys and be addicted to it, and he carries a fake 100 million check with him. I almost pit myself. I really don't know if this guy is intentional or unintentional. But this is all evidence of his deception. No way. Charlie dared to cheat me, he must take this check, in front of daughter, face him symptomatically. Whatever she says today, she has to ask her daughter to divorce this big liar. Charlie was in the ward, speaking with his wife Claire, and Jacob. At this time, the door of the ward was kicked open with a bang. The mother-in-law Elaine rushed in fiercely. As soon as she came in, Elaine took the $1 billion check in her hand, and while shaking it loudly, she cursed, "Charlie! Even you dare to cheat?" Charlie was stunned, and asked in surprise, "Mom, which one are you singing? When did I lie to you?" Elaine ignored him, ran to Claire, and complained, "Daughter! You have to divorce this big liar. This guy is uneasy and unkind. He wants to cheat your mother." Claire was also puzzled and asked, "Mom, what's the matter?" Elaine handed the check to Claire, and said angrily, "Look. Your husband Rag actually gave me a fake check worth 100 million. The cashier at the hospital almost called police and got me arrested. Called me a scammer." Charlie felt a little bit in his heart. This 100 million check, Warnya honored him. It must have been put in the pocket and confused with the 180,000 checks. It's over. How to explain this? Claire took a look at the check at this time, his face suddenly hard to look. He blurted out, "Charlie, what is going on with this 100 million fake check? Are you now engaged in fraud?" Charlie hurriedly explained, "Oh wife, it is a misunderstanding." Claire frowned and asked, "What is going on? Explain clearly to me." Elaine said to the side, "I need to ask? This check must be a prop he brought with him to deceive people. He accidentally gave it to me." "Humph. Fortunately, it was given to me. If it is really used to deceive people, the police can't catch him and shoot him." After finishing speaking, she looked at Claire again, and said distressedly, "Claire, this rubbish goes out and dares to defraud 100 million. You dare to believe such a courage? If you don't divorce him, our whole family will be killed by him." Claire's face also turned cold, looking at Charlie, and said, "Charlie, if you don't explain this clearly, I'll really consider divorcing you. You are poor, I can accept it. But if you don't follow the right path, steal and kidnap, then I can't get through with you." Charlie turned his mind and hurriedly said aggrieved, "My wife, let me be honest with you, this 100 million check, I actually bought it from the funeral store." "Funeral store?" Claire and Elaine were both taken aback and asked, "What's the matter?" Charlie had no choice but to sigh, "Didn't my old master die when I was 8? He asked me to have a dream 2 days ago, saying that he had no money to spend and was bullied by others, so I had to give him everything. Burn some money." Having said that, Charlie continued to sigh and said, "I dare not delay, so I went to the funeral shop and asked. People recommended this kind of check to me, saying that one is worth 100 million, and one is worth more than a dozen of the previous Ming banknotes. Bundled, energy-saving and environmentally friendly, so I bought one for 10, thinking that I burned it at the intersection at night, but I didn't expect that I just took the wrong one and gave this to Mother." Claire asked suspiciously, "What you said is true?" Charlie hurriedly nodded, "It's true. Think about it, how good everyone is these years. Who would be cheated by a check of 100 million? A check of 100 million can't even cheat a hospital cashier." Claire thought about it, and what Charlie said was indeed the truth. No one would believe a $100 million check, and it is not suitable for use as a fraud tool. Thinking of this, she eased her expression a bit, handed him the check, and said, "Install it, and burn it for your dad at night. Don't confuse us anymore. In case of a new long, you may have to something happened." Charlie also hurriedly nodded, "Don't worry, my wife, I know, I must pay attention." After speaking, he hurriedly drew out another check for 180,000, handed it to Elaine, and said, "Mom, this check is true, here it is." After speaking, he hurriedly flattered and said, "Fortunately, you found out early, or if I really burn this check, we will lose a lot." Elaine glared at him. If it weren't for the check, she was unwilling to let him go. However, who would have trouble with money? "Take this check, and the remaining 160,000 can be her own." Seeing she accepted the check, Charlie sighed with relief. He was not careful and almost had a big deal. Fortunately, his brain reacted faster. But having said that, mother-in-law is really clever and was mistaken by cleverness. If she knew that this 100 million check was true, she would be annoyed to jump straight from this window. Just as he breathed a sigh of relief, an old and anxious voice suddenly came from outside the ward door, "Jacob, Jacob. My son, how are you? Mom is here to see you." Upon hearing this, Charlie frowned. After that, he saw the old Mrs. Wilson walking in with a cane, Noah Wilson, Harold, and Wendy. Old Mrs. Wilson had an anxious and distressed face, her eyes were red, and she seemed to have just cried. As soon as she walked in, she couldn't help crying, and hurriedly walked to Jacob, who was lying on the hospital bed, and said with tears, "Jacob, Mom heard that you were in a car accident and was so scared that I almost died of a heart attack. I rushed to see you. How are you doing now?" Although Claire was a little disgusted with these people, she felt that she was visiting her father after all, and she couldn't refute the face, so she took a step forward for 100 years and said, "Grandma, Dad is all right. Charlie's injuries have already been treated. He is healed. The old Mrs. Wilson breathed a sigh of relief and said, "That's good, that's good." Jacob also said a little embarrassingly, "Mom, don't worry, I will die." In fact, Jacob also complained to the Lady Wilson in his heart. However, in addition to complaints, there are still family affections. After all, she is his own mother, how can he really have no feelings at all? At this moment, seeing his mother caring about him so much and crying like this, he was also moved. Old Mrs. Wilson burst into tears, and she reprimanded herself and said, "I blame Jacob, and I don't care about you so much. After knowing that you have an accident, your mother feels regretful. I am really afraid that you will be injured." Mom's misunderstanding is gone with that. The Lady Wilson was already crying bitterly, and choked with sobs. "Jacob, for so many years, in fact, Mom didn't care about you. Mom just always wanted you to be a good man, so she was deliberately harsh on you and hoped that you could grow up quickly. It's all hard work for Mom to be alone. Don't blame Mom." Jacob suddenly felt his heart tighten, and he burst into tears unconsciously. He had always complained to the Lady Wilson before, why did she love his brother so much but not him? Why do you always encourage your brother, but to yourself, no matter what you do is wrong? This matter has become a knot of his heart for so many years. But today, when Mom said so tearfully, he suddenly felt that the knot in his heart seemed to loosen a lot. Charlie frowned. He is not from the Wilson family, and there is no such so-called family bondage, so he can tell at a glance that the old Mrs. Wilson is doing a bitter trick. The Wilson family is now in a desperate situation, and if it can't be relieved, the Wilson group will fall apart, and the Lady Wilson will instantly fall to the bottom. She is a person who loves face all her life and would rather die than accept that she is poor and destitute, so she will definitely rack her brains to find a way to turn around. She had bullied and lured Claire before, but Claire never gave her any chance. She also used money to try to find a breakthrough from Elaine, but Elaine failed to convince Claire. Now, she began to aim at Jacob, and was ready to use a bitter trick to find a breakthrough from Jacob. This may also be her last resort. Jacob was already fooled at this time. He felt his heart knot untied, and the respect and love for his mother appeared in his heart. So, he shed tears and said, "Mom, I don't actually blame you in my heart. I know that I am not up to date. I am not as capable as my elder brother, nor as strong as my elder brother. I have disappointed you, sorry." Old Mrs. Wilson grabbed his hand, and while holding it tightly, she choked and said, "Good son, you can understand Mom's painstaking efforts. Even if Mom is dead now, it's worth it." The old Wilson standing by the side hurriedly stepped forward and sobbed, "Mom, don't keep talking about death. Jacob and I have lost our dad, so I can't say anything without Mom." While wiping her tears, Mrs. Wilson said gratifiedly, "You brothers have me in your hearts. Even if I die, I will be smiling on deathbed." Then she said, "You guys, you must be brothers together. Only brothers can be together. The old saying goes well, brothers are united, and the benefits are broken. If the two of you can tie together and do it well, what will the Wilson family worry about? Can't it be strong?" Noah Wilson nodded repeatedly, "Mom, you are right, I have been taught. From now on, I will work together with Jacob to make the Wilson family bigger and stronger." Jacob's expression was also a bit agitated, and he was on the set at first glance. Charlie couldn't help sighing, "The Lady Wilson is really a good trickster." The effort of 3 or 2 paragraphs has already brought Jacob into the ditch. Really? Jacob was also instigated by her and his elder brother's words, and was moved and said, "Don't worry, Mom, I will definitely work together with elder brother." When Mrs. Wilson heard this, she became excited and blurted out, "Good! Good! Great!" At this time, the Lady Wilson said to Harold and Wendy, who had been keeping their heads down and silent, "You two, quickly apologize to Claire and Charlie. Although you and Claire are not brothers and sisters, there is a relationship between cousins, everyone's blood is thicker than water, how can you always treat Claire and Charlie so excessively?" With that said, the Lady Wilson looked at Wendy and shouted, "Wendy! Especially you! At the opening ceremony today, do you still want to do something with your cousin? Don't give it to your sister, quickly apologize." The 2 brothers and sisters immediately bowed deeply and said in a very pious voice, "Claire, we were wrong before. Please forgive us. We will never do anything against you in the future." Claire was also a little caught off guard. She had never seen Harold and Wendy apologize softly. These 2 brothers and sisters have been stabbing their heads and facing each other life and death for so many years. However, seeing that both of them had apologized, Claire also kindly said, "Forget the past." Mrs. Wilson was overjoyed and immediately said to Claire, "Claire, your dad's body is still in the recovery stage, so he must be recuperated. Although Wilson's villa is a bit older, the environment is better than that of the residence they live in. There are a lot of strong buildings, how about you all move back to live?" Noah Wilson also hurriedly agreed, "Yes, Claire, your father's health is important, not only to have a good environment, but also to have a good mood. So, you just listen to your grandma's arrangements, come back and live, I will ask a few nanny to take care of your father 24 hours a day." Jacob was lying on the hospital bed. After hearing this, he was immediately moved. When he was moved, his heart was a little shaken, his brain was hot, and he couldn't help but ask Claire, "Claire, let's move back." Claire was also a little tangled at once. For a while, she would not be able to figure out whether Grandma was like this out of truth or falsehood. But seeing Grandma, Dad, Uncle, Mother, and Son holding hands and crying together, I was more or less moved. Moreover, for the sake of her father's recovery, if he can return to Wilson's house with a good environment, a good mood, and proper care, he will definitely be able to recover faster and better. Elaine also persuaded at this time, "Claire, what a great opportunity! What are you still trying to do? Hurry up and agree." Claire was a little hesitant at first, but when she saw that her parents were persuading, on the spur of the moment, she said, "Well then, just move back." Old Mrs. Wilson's expression was immediately happy, and her heart was extremely excited. "It's done! Ha ha ha! Sure enough! Sure enough, life is still old and spicy, Jacob is just a rubbish, Elaine is a money addict who sees money, Charlie is a rubbish who can only deceive people, Claire seems to be a bit capable, but it's not impossible tricked her. Has the bitter trick been completely settled?" Thinking of this, Mrs. Wilson couldn't be more proud of it. Noah Wilson couldn't help but quietly give the Lady Wilson a thumbs up, and his admiration for his mother at this time was like a torrential river. Mother is indeed an old world. This drama is almost at the textbook level. It starts with younger brother Jacob as a breakthrough, and then curves to save the country and impress Claire. It is perfect. Seeing that his wife was going to be fooled, Charlie hurriedly said, "Grandma, Uncle, it's natural to move back to live in the first place, it's no problem." Harold frowned, and shouted coldly, "But what? Our Wilson family's affairs, what's the matter with you? Don't you talk too much?" Old Mrs. Wilson raised her hand and slapped Harold, and shouted angrily, "How do you talk to your brother-in-law? Keep your bullshit to yourself." With this slap, Harold was stunned, and immediately understood. He almost got into trouble because he couldn't help but mock Charlie. If he really can't help it, and ridicule Charlie, revealing the truth of repentance on the surface but no correction in the heart, then the perfect plan of Grandma's use of bitter tricks to trick Claire's family back may be revealed. Thinking of this, he panicked and immediately said to Charlie, "I'm sorry, brother-in-law, it's my mouth. It's my mouth. Please forgive me." As he said, he slapped himself twice, appearing extremely sincere. Charlie couldn't help but sneered in his heart, "Okay, the Wilson family really gave up everything in order to act in this bitter drama." Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.